Welcome to another episode of Sounds Reasonable. I'm your host, Dr. Brad, and I am joined in the production of our weekly show by Tim, Tracy, and Abby. Abby decided to make sure she attended the First Church of St. Mattress today. Just kidding, Abby.
Some excuse.
Abby had some other business to take care of today, but she'll be back with us next week. We're all members of the Free Thought community, and our Sounds Reasonable website can be found on Facebook. Do you experience frequent irrational thoughts, a pervasive belief in a divine skydive, an insatiable urge to read horoscopes, perform spells, speak in tongues, or pray? Fortunately, you are now listening to the cure for these ailments. Sounds Reasonable. This show is dedicated to bringing you, the listener, the latest news in free thought, science, logic and reason, and politics and religion. And of course, we encourage you to share your thoughts with us after each episode by posting comments and asking questions on our Facebook page. What is free thought? What does it mean to be a free thinker? The dictionary definition is a person who forms opinions about religion based on reason, independent of tradition, authority, or established belief. Here's Christopher Hitchens' working definition. Our belief is not a belief. Our principles are not a faith. We do not rely solely upon science and reason because these are necessary rather than sufficient factors, but we distrust anything that contradicts science or outrages reason. We may differ on many things, but what we respect is free inquiry, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of ideas for their own sake. We'll now move on to our science news segment. And remember that the scientific mind is one that allows its perceptions of reality to be constrained by good evidence and good argument. Cancer is a genetic disease. Therefore, it makes sense that we try to take a genetics approach to diagnose and treat it. The Cancer Genome Atlas, or TCGA, and note, of course, that those are the abbreviations for the bases that make up DNA, is the outcome of over 15 years of work sequencing the genomes of various types of cancer. Nearly every targeted cancer drug approved over the past decade has drawn from the data sets generated by these efforts, derived from over 11,000 patients and 33 different types of cancer. It is now time to put this data to work. Tim has the story. So, Tim, can we look forward to finding a magic bullet against cancer in the next decade?
Well, thanks for the introduction, Dr. Brad. And I think this next phase in the battle against cancer looks really promising. So, very hopeful. My segment comes to us today from an article in the journal Nature, written by Jesse Boehm and Matthew Garnett et al. And it's titled, Cancer Research Needs a Better Map, and kind of subtitled here, or a sub-clarification. It is time to move beyond tumor sequencing data to identify vulnerabilities in cancers. Almost 15 years ago, scientists and clinicians set out to characterize genomes of tumors from thousands of patients. The results? The Cancer Genome Atlas, TCGA, and the International Cancer Genome Consortium, ICGC. Nearly every targeted cancer drug approved over the past decade has drawn from the data sets generated by these efforts. The information is now also providing clues to triangulate which individuals can benefit from new types of drugs, which help the immune system to fight cancer better, to better fight cancer. TCGA, TCGA generated more than 2.5 petabytes of data measuring mutations, gene expression, and protein levels across 33 cancer types. Now, a little side note here. Remember, a byte is the base unit for measure measuring of memory and data storage capacity. And a petabyte is equal to 2 to the 50th power of bytes. So in other words, there are 1,024 terabytes in a petabyte, or 1,000,000 gigabytes in a petabyte. That's a lot of information. So to continue on here, it catalyzed innovations in DNA sequencing technology and genome analysis. It ultimately collected data from some 11,000 patients, data that thousands of researchers use. This work redefined cancers on the molecular level and painted a picture of the mutations that occur in common tumor types. Nonetheless, less than a quarter of people with the most common cancers benefit from precision medicine today. For most patients, there is a long way to go before clinicians will be able to predict drug activity and mechanism on the basis of a mutation or other molecular markers in an individual tumor. In 2018, an estimated 10 million people worldwide died from cancer. Too many endure invasive, toxic treatments because physicians had no way to know what would work. Improving the odds requires another ambitious period, one we call the cancer dependency map. This would systematically map cancer vulnerabilities by perturbing genes and proteins across many cancer types, as well as across clinical stages and settings. Now, again, a little side note, you heard me right. They are going to perturb genes and proteins. They're going to upset them. They're going to piss them off. Well, upset them.
Oh, I know what perturb means.
Yeah. So that's what they want to do. They want to perturb the hell out of them. The cancer dependency map would collect different data and ask different questions from sequencing projects by looking at the experimental effects and the perturbations. I'm going to share my screen with the figure here. Come on. Share screen would be what I want to do. Okay. You see the screen okay, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Oh, now I got to get back to my script. Okay, I didn't have that set up right. I can't see my script now. Sorry, I'm gonna have to go out of full screen mode. Okay, well, let me just talk about this, and I'll go back to the script. So in the figure here, you're seeing on the left, what the Cancer Genome Atlas has been doing or has done, and then you're seeing on the right what they projecting that the cancer dependency map is going to do. So the Genome Atlas focused on comparing DNA in healthy tissues and tumors, where the cancer dependency map is going to focus on lab experiments that are going to find these vulnerabilities that they can use then to treat the cancers instead. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the script, and we'll talk about some of these roles of the cancer dependency map. Okay. Sorry. Our goal is audacious. Some might even say naive. The aim is to evaluate every gene and drug perturbation in every possible type of cancer in laboratory experiments, and to make the data accessible to researchers and machine learning experts worldwide. To put some ballpark numbers on the ambition, we think it will be necessary to perturb 20,000 genes and assess the activity of 10,000 drugs and drug candidates in 20,000 cancer models. The measure changes in variability, major changes in variability, morphology, gene expression, and more. Technologies from CRISPR genome editing to informatics now make this possible, given enough resources and researchers to take on the task. We are investigators at 2 leading genomics research institutes, the Wellcome Sanger Institute in Hingston, UK, and the Broad Institute in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Our organizations have led and supported large international initiatives that produce reference genomics data sets, such as the Human Genome Project and so on. We started a pilot project for the cancer dependency map years ago to assess the basic feasibility of this effort. Data from these pilot efforts are now accessed daily by 1,500 researchers across more than 100 countries. Tens of highly validated drug targets have been discovered, and clinical trials have already begun and are being launched. But the scale and complexity of this challenge means that we need more than the Broad and Sanger Institutes alone. Now is the time to follow in the footsteps of other large scientific projects to expand these efforts beyond our 2 institutes into a communal initiative coordinated and built by many hands. Some little more mutations here. There's more than mutation. In oncology, a dependency is a gene, protein, or molecular feature that a tumor depends on for growth. It could also be called a vulnerability. The simplest type of dependency is an addiction, a gene that spurs tumor growth when mutated, copied, or overexpressed, and which becomes essential for the cell's continued proliferation. There are therapies that can suppress such gene products directly. Another type of vulnerability is more complicated and hard to find using tumor sequence data. A protein becomes indispensable for a tumor's growth because of alterations in other genes. This situation is known as synthetic lethality. For example, some people with breast and ovarian cancers have mutations in the gene BRCA1. Drugs for these individuals target a protein involved in the DNA repair mechanism that these cancers need to survive, not the BRCA1 protein itself. So discovering and understanding more vulnerabilities and more kinds of them could transform cancer treatment. The roots of the cancer dependency map began with the investigation of 2 lines of research. One aimed to assess the effects of known drugs across hundreds of cancer lines. The other sought to disrupt nearly every gene in hundreds of cancer models. Our estimate is that this pilot represents just a small portion of probably less than 10% of a complete cancer dependency map. Much remains to be done. So mega mapping. The easiest step is to expand the range of drugs and genetic manipulations using screens. CRISPR genome editing tools can knock out genes, turn expression off and on, and even manipulate combination of the genes. These perturbations can be performed across many tumor types and cell contexts, such as in the presence of immune and other non-cancerous cells. Existing collections of drugs and other molecules with specific activity against known proteins can be used to inhibit or even modify protein functions. Classes of compounds that have other types of activities, such as promoting protein degradation, should be included in the screens as our understanding of them matures. The range of data must be collected the range of data that must be collected is substantial. The pilot phase of the dependency map mainly measured proxies for proliferation, so further measurements would be extremely informative. For example, identifying drug targets that promote sequescence, a condition in which cells live but no longer divide, would open routes to new forms of therapeutics. Measuring gene expression in response to drugs could reveal which ones might be combined into more effective therapies. Single cell measurements such as cell imaging and sequencing to determine RNA levels at various time points could identify differences in the response of tumor cell populations. This information could be used to target drug tolerant cells. Data standards. Excuse me. Data from cancer dependency map must be accessible and flow easily into analysis pipelines for academic and pharmaceutical scientists, artificial intelligence expert, and clinicians. Data sets generated at different sites using varying technologies will be difficult or impossible to aggregate without careful advanced planning. Care must be taken so that the data will be maximally useful and can be readily integrated with databases such as the U.S. National Cancer Institute's Genomic Data Commons portal, and as well as others. For the past 20 years, various scientific communities have crafted minimal information standards to enable interpretation and replication of experiments. The best known of these is the minimum information about microarray experiments, which was set up so that researchers could effectively compare gene expression experiments in different laboratories. The cancer dependency map will need something similar to support annotation, integration, reproducibility, and computation. Money and collaboration. So this project is ambitious, but possible. Past examples of large successful global projects include the ICGC and the Human Cell Atlas, a project to characterize gene expression, lineage, and location of hundreds of cell types. The NIH and the Wellcome Trust were major funders of these and others. The first step forward is to assemble scientific thought leaders as well as funders to clearly define the scope and scale of data needed. The next step is to establish working groups around standards, technology, data access, and cancer types. This follows the example of the Human Cell Atlas, in which research is led by independent laboratories with collaboration at the level of the organ. Its working groups set data standards that enable sharing and integration. Similar to the Human Cell Atlas, data and technologies arising from the cancer dependency map would provide huge resources for science, as well as the networking and technology development spurred by the Umbrella Project. Just gearing up to collect measurements for the cancer dependency map could drive innovation in automation, miniaturization, and in new co-culturing techniques that mimic physiological conditions. 1 in 6 deaths worldwide are due to cancer. Although more targets and therapeutic approaches are published every day, systematic investigations will enable more and faster discoveries. By testing thousands of genetic and chemical perturbations and thousands of cancer models in rigorous conditional coordinated experiments, the cancer dependency map can reveal the cellular writing underlying a breadth of tumors. This, with data accessible to individual researchers, queries, and computational approaches in the same way that large-scale systematic genome sequencing transformed our understanding of cancer, the cancer dependency map will enable researchers to explore questions, identify routes to therapies that are currently unimaginable. So this is a very exciting and new direction for more specific treatment of cancers. So what do you guys think about this?
Yeah, so this is something that's obviously needed. Now, one thing that struck me while I was listening to your information, Tim, was it's now down to 1 in 6 because I specifically remember talking in my classes that the chances of someone in my classroom getting cancer was 1 in 4 and dying from it was 1 in 5.
Okay.
So it's now down to 1 in 6. So that's really good news.
Right.
And that's worldwide, right? That's what you said, worldwide?
Yeah, it was worldwide, yes.
Yeah, so in the US, it's probably even less than that now. So it always, it amazes me if I'm talking to a lay person once in a while about cancer treatment. they go, oh, you guys have had the treatment for cancer for years. You're just not releasing it, or how
Oh,
how is it that we've just not made progress? And I go, we've made tremendous progress. You know, it's just that it's on a subtle level. We have more cancer survivors now than we've ever had. So anyway,
Yeah, well, and then they also think too, it's just going to be there's one thing, right? There's one thing that you can, why haven't they found the one thing that cures all cancers? Well,
yeah, exactly. That's why I kind of started it out by saying we're going to find our magic bullet by
right.
exactly.
by the end of the day, 'cause that's what they always assume.
Yeah.
Just a one treatment fits all, and no, that's not going to be going to be it.
Yeah, it's not even close to that. It's
No, not at all.
they found multiple methods are going to have to be utilized, and just think alone if they can, instead of having to go in and get the chemotherapy where they're just injecting these, injecting chemicals that are killing you too, as well as the tumor. Because really that's what they're doing. They're making you so they're affecting you so much because it's a shotgun approach to try to treat the cancer instead of this pinpoint approach, which I think they're going to be, they're going to work to develop that. That'll be amazing.
Yeah, and that's of course exactly what's needed is designer drugs for each individual,
Right.
as opposed to, as you said, the shotgun approach. I mean, anybody who knows anyone that's had chemotherapy knows how debilitating it is. They just feel awful, after a treatment, and that's because it's a general toxin. There's no direct targeting at the moment. So yeah, this is exactly what's needed. All right. Well, Tim, thanks so much for that story, and we'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable after this short break.
All alive. The devil's in the detail, lingered inside. Oh, a holy crime. But how can I hide you without an alibi? It's a lover's fight without an alibi. You took my innocence. I can't wait no longer. I'm playing with the monsters. Everything that brought me alive. Going wrong like nonsense, playing with the monsters. They brought me alive, but got no alibi. It's a lover's fight without an alibi. You took my innocence without an alibi.
We're back. Whoops. And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable on January 31st, 2021. Can't believe the first month of 2021's gone already. Anyway, a couple of months ago, Tracy did a series of reports on the QAnon movement. If you did not see them, go back and view them. They're very well done. Now that QAnon supporters can no longer hang on to Trump being reelected, the movement appears to be in disarray. Tracy has the follow-up story. So Tracy, what is a good QAnon follower to do?
Well, QAnon became one of my favorite groups. I actually infiltrated it, and now I believe everything they do. Sorry. But it backfired. It backfired. It's all true. All right, this is This is from the HuffPost entitled, "It's Over. Devastated QAnon believers grapple with President Joe Biden's inauguration." Just the idea of QAnon believers saying it's over, I don't buy it. A look inside QAnon's virtual inauguration watch party, which went horribly wrong. I was there. It did. It was wrong. Wrong. I was there. I brought those cheese balls that you buy that you can make with the Bisquick. Okay, Joe Biden's inauguration on Wednesday marks not only the historic beginning of a new presidency, but also, for countless Americans, the devastating end of a years-long grift. For believers of QAnon, the far-right conspiracy theory that holds Donald Trump as a deity-like figure secretly ruling a state cabal of pedophiles who control the government, things weren't supposed to go down this way. Okay. Month after month, year after year, they had been told by Q, the group's shadowy online leader, and Q's army of social media influencers, that a symbolic storm was coming. The mythology held that on Wednesday, at long last, hang on. I lost my something.
Is that January 20th you're referring to?
I don't know what I'm referring to anymore. Half my story disappeared. I think QAnon is on to us. On to us. Things, okay, weren't supposed to go down this way. Q's leader, well, his name is Q.
With these brothers R and S.
Right, exactly. The group's shadowy online leader, Q, and Q's army of social media influencers, that a symbolic storm was coming. The mythology held that on Wednesday, at long last, the Bidens, Obamas, and Clintons would be rounded up and executed, finally, for child sex trafficking, treason, and other crimes. Trump, having finally conquered evil, would remain in power.
They're a little disappointed, aren't they?
Y'all talk about that while well, I mean, that was what was supposed to happen.
Oh.
Right? I mean, okay, here we go. This was the moment they had desperately been waiting for. I'm sorry, guys. Something's wrong with my phone.
Well, let's just kind of pick it up from there. So
Yeah.
needless to say, when these conspiracy theories collapse like this, usually that's when one of two things happens. Either they do just scatter the four winds, or it's my understanding now that Q has put out another prediction that the old, shall we say, edition of the Constitution had the original inauguration day in March, and so now they've simply moved their date back to March. And where have we seen stuff like this happen before? I think various people that predict the end of the world do
Yeah.
this exact same thing all the time. Oh, wait, I misinterpreted that.
Wait,
I
Yeah.
really meant October 12th, not June 12th.
Right, you're
the
right.
square root of 3, the square root of 3 screwed it all up. Inside digital safe haven so far for far-right extremists such as Gab and Telegram, massive QAnon groups turned into virtual watch parties reacting to Wednesday's ceremony in real time. I wish I hadn't missed that, actually. As the event began, members could hardly contain their joy or their desire for bloodshed. Welcome to the grand finale, someone cheered in a 185,000 member Gab group. Anyone else want to puke with excitement?
That's what I do when I'm excited.
So happy.
So happy to meet you.
Another person asked amid a rapid stream of messages coursing through a 34,000 member Telegram channel. Others salivated over the idea of decapitations and sexual violence against prominent Democrats. That's just, yeah, that's Pavlov's theory at work, right?
Exactly. Sounds like
You know, like sexual violence salivating. Okay. Several messages were too grotesque to publish. By 11:45 a.m., though, as Kamala Harris took her vice presidential oath of office, the crowds grew anxious. Well, this popcorn just got cold, one supporter wrote. When did the arrest start? Another question. What's going on? What? Why is this normal? Still, they continued clinging to hope while counting down the minutes until their long-awaited Great Awakening. But as noon arrived and a grinning Biden placed his hand on the Bible to be sworn in as the 46th president of the United States, reality came crashing down. I can't stop crying. Fuck. Why? One person pleaded. It's over, another conceded. Some wondered how they could possibly mend their broken relationships with the loved ones they'd pushed away over their obsessions with Q.
Too late.
Oh. It's like a thread of text messages or something. Somebody's like, fuck. And then somebody has like cry eyes. And somebody says confused. And then somebody says all the lies. And now what? BS. No. Fuck this sham. I like to say fuck on the air a lot, especially if I can get away with it. Okay.
Well, I suppose if Joe Scarborough can get away with it on Morning Joe on MSNBC, we can't relate to it. But,
Yeah.
Like a flipped switch, the attitude inside online QAnon communities shifted from glee to shock and misery. Nothing fucking happened. So now we have to prove Q was total bullshit. I feel sick, disgusted, and disappointed. Have we been duped? You played us all. How could we believe this for so long? Are we all idiots?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
You
The
said it
magic-
quick.
You are.
The magic 8 ball says yes.
Oh.
Meanwhile, several QAnon loyalists performed metal-worthy mental gymnastics to keep their delusion alive. A few suggested that the video of Biden becoming president was a deep fake and that he was actually locked away behind bars as it played across the nation. I heard that one. Others posited that Biden himself had in fact been working with Trump to dismantle the deep state all along and would be the one to sic the military on the supposed traitors. Many simply pleaded with each other to stay patient. Q wouldn't do this to us. He wouldn't let us down. Don't lose hope. But even some of QAnon's most prominent influencers reluctantly acknowledged that it was time to move on. Mel Q, a major QAnon leader, turned off commenting in her Telegram channel as Biden's swearing in drew nearer and members appeared to lose faith in order to have everyone take a breather. But once the ceremony was complete, she changed her tune. Okay, let it all out, she wrote, later adding, we'll get through anything together. Ron Watkins, the former administrator of ACON, a platform that has long been vital to Q's communication with believers, also pulled the plug. We gave it our all, he told his nearly 120,000 Telegram subscribers. Now we need to keep your chins up and go back to our lives as best as we are able. Even Joe M., one of the earliest and most widely known Q backers, had hinted days ago that QAnon could be a ruse. Next week, either Q turns out to be an elaborate, well-intentioned hoax, really? Or we are all about to watch the Red Sea part and the unfolding of a new biblical level chapter in human civilization. He wrote on January 16th, but on Wednesday afternoon, he wasn't ready to accept defeat. My faith is not in Q or the plan. My faith is in red-blooded, proud, and tenacious Americans and everything they have always stood for. He assured the tens of thousands of users in his Telegram channel, no matter how dark today may feel, that faith is unbreakable. To be sure, this isn't the end of QAnon or the immense damage it has inflicted on this country. The movement, which the FBI considers to be a domestic terrorist threat, has already evolved and regrouped to string its members along time and time and again, and it has planted deep roots in an array of other communities. Yoga lovers, church groups, school classrooms, anti-vax networks, the list goes on. QAnon's mass radicalization of Americans is part of Trump's legacy. Addressing it will likely be one of the Biden administration's greatest challenges. It's unclear where the conspiracy theory goes from here. Many ardent supporters are vowing to keep marching forward, undeterred. For today, though, the group is at a loss.
I didn't mean to slight Q's sisters, O and P, as well. So,
I honestly, I didn't think even the whole inauguration, I didn't think anything was going to have QAnon supporters question anything. I thought they had an answer for everything.
well, all we have to do, is kind of look back to the purpose of our own group here. Sounds reasonable, and realize that the reason a group like this pops up and survives is because it mimics a religion. This is exactly how religions go. They develop an unfalsifiable creed that for some reason will appeal to a particular group,
Cult.
and that
Cult.
group refuses to let go because it literally causes emotional pain to let go. And so that in my view is why it popped up and why it will probably remain.
Well,
Yeah, they play upon certain emotions, certain feelings, and they just use that to their advantage to hook them. And then so now you have this emotional commitment in a cause that they think is going to be, you know, fulfilling their this need that they have. And so yeah, they don't want to. When it does fall apart, then they try to rationalize it in some other ways. So because you're right, Dr. Brad, they don't want to feel the hurt of being scammed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And now they all qualify for crazy checks. So maybe that was like the whole reason it got started to begin with, just people trying to get their government crazy money. Disability.
So I didn't realize
Disability.
that being a member, being a far right extremist can get you disability money.
Probably. I've been doing a lot of research here lately. I've been doing a lot of research here lately, and it's possible that's one of the things on my list.
Maybe their employers apply for government funds for hiring the mentally handicapped.
There you go. Exactly.
They get tax credits. They get tax credits for that.
How many crazy right extremists do you have on your staff? We got more than you do. Look at all the money we're raking in.
Well,
Be a number of things.
Thanks so very much for that story. And we'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable.
Messing with my head again. You had your heart set on me, but these feels, they come and go, and they come so easily. Tell me what it is about you that I can't forget, but you're breaking down my walls again just to set me free. Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling?
And we're back with our politics story of the week. With the events of January 6th still fresh in our minds, except for the majority of congressional Republicans, apparently, there are some shocking revelations coming to light on who is involved in the insurrection. The story I'm going to relay today comes from NPR, January 21st, 2021. Authored by Tom Dreisbach and Meg Anderson, and is titled "Nearly 1 in 5 Defendants in the Capitol Riot Cases Served in the Military."
No kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. As a violent mob descended on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, lawmakers and aides hid wherever they could, waiting for the military and police to arrive. But many of those who stormed the Capitol were military veterans themselves, who had once sworn to protect the Constitution. In fact, an NPR analyst analysis has found that nearly 1 in 5 people charged over their alleged involvement in the attack on the U.S. Capitol appear to have a military history. NPR
I
compiled.
heard there was actually a,
Go ahead, Tracy.
go ahead. I was going to say, I heard there was actually delay because a lot of those people had to go home and change and then come back for the
For before
the military people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, NPR compiled a list of individuals facing federal or District of Columbia charges in connection with the events of January 6th. Of more than 140 charged so far, a review of military records, social media accounts, court documents, and news reports indicate at least 27 of those charged, or nearly 20%, have served or are currently serving in the U.S. military. To put that number in perspective, only about 7% of all American adults are military veterans, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Several veterans are charged with violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds. One of them is Larry Rendell Brock Jr. The Air Force veteran was photographed in a military-style helmet and tactical vest carrying flex cups inside the Capitol. So that's the guy that had all intent of trying to grab Pelosi and Pence.
What did he have?
Those flex cups, the
Zip tie.
those ties.
Oh, zip ties?
Yeah, zip ties. Yeah, zip ties.
Zip ties. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, he posted on Facebook that he is preparing for a second civil war, according to documents filed in federal court. In the weeks after Biden's victory, Brock posted that we are now under occupation by a hostile governing force. I see no distinction between a group of Americans seizing power and governing with complete disregard to the Constitution and an invading force of Chinese communists accomplishing the same objective, Brock wrote. There's no credible evidence, of course, of widespread voter fraud in the 2020 election. He ended his post with a reference to the oath taken by members of the military against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Some veterans who allegedly stormed the Capitol are still serving in some capacity. Jacob Fracker, 29, was an infantry rifleman in the Marine Corps and deployed to Afghanistan twice, according to the Pentagon. He now serves in the Virginia National Guard, according to widespread news reports, though he was not among the service members deployed to Washington ahead of the inauguration. He is also a police officer in Rocky Mount, Virginia. With him at the Capitol on January 6th was his colleague from the Rocky Mount Police Department, Thomas Robertson, 47, who is an Army veteran also facing charges. Federal prosecutors have also alleged that multiple members of the right-wing extremist group, the Oath Keepers, took part in the incursion at the Capitol. The group has been known to target and recruit active duty members of the military and veterans, in part for their specialized skills. Among those charged in relation to the storming of the Capitol are Thomas Edward Caldwell, a Navy veteran and alleged leader among the Oath Keepers, and Donovan Ray Kroll, a Marine Corps veteran. They have been charged with conspiracy to obstruct the Electoral College vote, among other alleged crimes. Attorneys representing those facing charges did not respond to NPR's messages seeking comment. Roughly 1/3 of active duty troops said they had personally witnessed examples of white nationalism or ideological driven racism within the ranks in recent months, according to a 2019 survey conducted by the Military Times and Syracuse University Institute for Veterans and Military Families. Troops said they had seen swastikas being drawn on service members' cars, tattoos affiliated with white supremacist groups, stickers supporting the KKK, and Nazi-style salutes between individuals. At least one individual charged in connection with the assault on the Capitol allegedly embraced that extremist ideology. Timothy Lewis Hale Cusinelli, 30, is a Navy contractor who has worked at a naval weapons station with a secret security clearance, according to court documents. Boy, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
He is also an Army Reserve Sergeant in the 174th Infantry Brigade and an avowed white supremacist and Nazi sympathizer, according to court documents. Some experts argue the military has not done enough to tamp down on extremism in its ranks. And I think I already mentioned this. I forget if I did it while we were recording or not, but I witnessed some disturbing behavior when I was out at the Air Force Academy for football. So anyway, I won't repeat that in case I did do that on the air. I don't remember if I did or not.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Yeah, okay. Mark Pitcavage, a senior research fellow with the Anti-Defamation League Center on Extremism, called the military's efforts largely haphazard. It's not like the military is just tolerating white supremacists, Pitcavage told NPR, but he said efforts to address the problem need to be more systematic. Not only does there need to be training, Pitcavage says, but there also need to be clear expectations coming down from on high about what you should do when you encounter an extremist in your unit, at your base, or whatever the circumstances are, and that here are the procedures that need to be followed. The problem is not entirely lost on the Defense Department. After the January 6th insurrection, a senior defense official told NPR there were 68 notifications of investigations by the FBI last year of former and current military members pertaining to domestic terrorism. When extremism in the military goes undetected or ignored, the stakes can be high. And this is something that I was frankly worried about a long time ago when the military became fully volunteer, because like-minded people volunteer for the same thing. So
Right.
now, as Heidi Beirich, co-founder of the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism, testified to Congress, veterans and military personnel have training that makes terrorist attacks more achievable and more deadly. In 2019, federal prosecutors said that Coast Guard Lieutenant Christopher Hayson had planned a series of violent attacks against liberal politicians and was an avowed white nationalist for decades. Hayson ultimately pleaded guilty to drug and weapons charges. Of course, the most infamous of these individuals is Timothy McVeigh, who carried out the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing that killed 168 people. He was an Army veteran who served in the Persian Gulf War. He had taken inspiration from the white supremacist novel The Turner Diaries, which continues to hold sway among far-right extremists. Now, personally, I'm really not for banning books, but this should be one. Pitcavage cautions that there is limited evidence military veterans are more susceptible to extreme ideology than are other groups of Americans. Overall, our veteran population is largely reflective of our general population, Pitcavage said. Veterans, for example, have also been on the front lines of the fight against extremism. Brian Sicknick, the police officer who died trying to prevent the mob from storming the Capitol, was also a veteran. The New Jersey Air National Guard, where Sicknick served, said Staff Sergeant Sicknick's commitment to service and to protect his community, state, and nation will never be forgotten. In his inaugural address on Wednesday, President Biden pledged to combat a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism. Likewise, Biden's pick to lead the Department of Defense, retired General Lloyd Austin, told Congress on Tuesday that if confirmed, he would work to combat extremism in the military, a problem the Defense Department acknowledged in a report in December. Austin, who would be the nation's first Black defense secretary, said he would fight hard to rid our ranks of racists. The Defense Department's job is to keep America safe from our enemies, he testified. But we can't do that if some of those enemies lie within our own ranks. So there's the disturbing story of the week, shall we say.
Right.
And here's the thing about nowadays, when they're looking at recruits, it's really pretty easy to do an online search and see what groups, what's their online fingerprint. Are they associating with these groups, and they can find that out pretty easily and weed them out before they even get in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the age of social media, that is easy now. That is easy.
Right.
Just like Marjorie Taylor Greene, why she was ever allowed to be seated. Pelosi should have refused to seat her. I'm serious. I mean, she has that power. She
Absolutely. Right.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe some of that stuff, I don't know if some of that stuff was known, but there's definitely a ton of crap coming out now about her, and she had no business being in that.
No, absolutely not.
The joke I was alluding to earlier kind of failed there, but my daughter had said to me, you know why the military response was so slow during the insurrection? Because people had to go home and change clothes first. You guys get that? It's a joke.
Yeah, they had to get out of their uniform.
They had to, and put their military clothes on.
Get out of their clothes they were wearing at the insurrection and put their military.
Yeah.
So.
Oh.
Anyway, go ahead, Tracy.
My boyfriend is a Navy veteran, and it's his opinion that anybody who was caught involved in any kind of way or past the barricades or whatever should lose their pensions and all their VA benefits. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm farther than that.
There has to be consequences for this action.
Should be a court-martialable offense.
Yeah.
How it is, and I don't know.
Right, there should be some consequences for those actions. Yeah.
Like, how are you going to fight for America and fight America?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a non sequitur. I mean, it's just you can't do both, obviously. Cannot do both. All right. Well, I think we'll have to leave that there. So we'll be right back with our crazy story of the week.
I'm feeling so hollow, don't you know? Don't you know? I'm living in shadow, don't you know? Don't you know? I fell for fool's gold, I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fool's gold, I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? You were fool's gold.
Well, we have a long way to go before we get to Halloween, but why let that get in the way of performing a good exorcism? Tim, remind us of what that looks like.
Our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with the Father and the Holy Spirit. Damien!
That looks so real.
No, there is not a remake of The Exorcist coming out soon. Instead, the power of Christ is being used to try to overturn the 2020 election.
Via exorcism?
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Today's crazy story of the week comes from the Raw story, published January 26th of this year, and authored by Brad Reed. The power of Christ apparently couldn't compel officials to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. But that didn't stop one Trump-loving pastor from trying. The Wisconsin State Journal reports that the Trump-supporting Reverend John Zoldorf has left his post at the Diocese of Madison after he conducted exorcisms aimed at stopping President Joe Biden from taking office. Zoldorf got himself into trouble when he claimed that Madison Catholic Bishop Donald Hying had given him permission to perform the election-related exorcisms, which Hying said is flatly not true. According to International Weekly Catholic News magazine, The Tablet, Zoldorf posted videos of his exorcisms on YouTube in which he seemed to be trying to cast evil spirits out of Dominion voting machines. Now here comes
Inanimate. Okay. I don't know why the inanimate part got me, but that's pretty damn funny.
Well, here comes the best part. As exorcists will confirm, the demons are very good with electronic equipment.
They're tech savvy demons.
Tech savvy demons out there.
They have their 2-year training certificates. They're
He reportedly said during a January 5th exorcism, which has since been deleted from YouTube. I wonder why they took that down.
I want to find it somewhere. Okay.
Shortly after his departure, Zoldorf wrote a cryptic blog post in which he decried cancel culture overtaking the church, while also lashing out at what he described as Catholic Antifa.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Oh my.
Do you think they wear all white, like, instead of all black?
Oh my gosh. Well,
maybe, I don't know.
As Tim already knows, and I think I posted it to our group, we've also got a similar wingnut from Nebraska that was also there performing exorcisms. Also without permission, I might add.
Yeah.
Without permission.
Without
He
permission.
didn't have a permit, an exorcism permit.
God, I don't know about,
I think they even said that. Then one of the bishops or whatever said that he doesn't have the training to be doing exorcism.
I did. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, you've got to at least complete the 8-week training program.
Or it won't work right. It won't work right if you don't do it
I
right.
just happen to sell for $199.95.
Well, I think you have to watch The Exorcist so many times before you have the proper training.
I've got the DVD box set, so if you guys want to brush up.
All right.
Yeah.
A refresher course.
I mean, who knows? There might be some good money out there doing this.
Oh,
Oh, well, we needed a good laugh after the previous story, so I think we got it.
yes, yes,
Yep.
indeed.
Well, that will wrap us up for this week. If you have enjoyed our program, please pass the word to your friends and associates, believers and non-believers alike. Again, just a reminder that you are welcome to post questions and comments on our Facebook page. Remember, there is a big difference between having good reasons for what one accepts to be true and having bad ones. Incidentally, this is the only distinction one needs to become a strict atheist. This has been Dr. Brad for Tracy and Tim saying so long.